Hi, welcome everybody to our Module 2 for the Master PAL series. Today we are going to be talking about aided language input. And hello again, I am Jeanna Antrim. I am an SLP and AAC facilitator and I work at PrAACtical, the Belleville Area Special Services Cooperative.
And hi, I'm Maggie, Judson. I work for PrAACtical as well as an AAC therapist. So we're super excited that you're joining us again today to go over the materials that Tabitha Jones-Wohleber graciously put out on PrAACtical AAC. So we're very excited.
All right, so again, we're going to, this whole series for Master PAL is how to become a supporting exemplar AAC communication partner and how to model as a Master PAL.
So again, something to keep in mind, we're going to be talking a lot about AAC and AAC systems and support throughout today and through the training series. But the communication partner skills and strategies we'll discuss and learn and apply to practice, these can be used when you're working with any student with language or communication needs.
All right, and then this visual just reminds us of the topics that we will be discussing as we go through the Master PAL series.
All right, again, a little recap. So Master PAL, we're going to break that down. What's Master? That means we're becoming a skilled practitioner and we are acquiring knowledge in a skill set so that we are becoming proficient and knowledgeable in a certain skill, and that's going to be our communication partner skills.
And then the second part is PAL, which is a friend, buddy, comrade, companion. And so we need to be skilled in order to be able to teach our students their communication skills, but we also want to be that buddy for them and so that they are motivated and have that desire to want to communicate to us as well.
All right, so AAC, augmentative and alternative communication. Remember that it's this umbrella term that encompasses the communication methods and tools that we use or students use to supplement or replace speech or writing for those with impairments in the production of comprehension of spoken or written language. So it's all the tools and all the strategies that we use to replace or supplement spoken language.
And we wanted to bring up this again to the Communication Bill of Rights because it is just so good. So, and we always like to remind ourselves of all of those rights that our students have. And today we're really going to be talking about the right to be taught how to communicate and the most evidence-based research strategy for doing so.
All right, and something to keep in mind, maybe you are here and right now you don't have a student that is using AAC supports or AAC strategies or AAC equipment, but something to keep in mind is how would you know if a student could benefit from AAC? So we like to think of it as just one question. Is the student's speech meeting their communication needs? And if that, you would have to answer that question as a no, then yes, they could benefit from AAC. So we're very glad that you're here talking all about that.
All right. And the most evidence-based way for us to teach them how to communicate and how to communicate for different purposes is through aided language input. So we're going to spend the rest of this hour discussing aided language input and what that looks like.
All right, so aided language input, you might also hear this called as modeling, but we like to refer to it as aided language input. Modeling can mean different things for different professionals and in different settings. So we have a shared language and a shared understanding. We're going to be calling it aided language input. But through aided language input, we are modeling language. And so that the definition of modeling or model, it's a system or thing used to as an example in order to follow to develop a skill. So the whole point of aided language input is to help give an example of the skill that we want to teach. This is not an imitation task. So when we are providing aided language input, you see up there at the top of the slide, that's us speaking in AAC. We're speaking in AAC. We're not waiting for our students to prove that they know how to use an AAC system. We're not waiting for them to show us that they can talk using an AAC system. This is us talking in AAC. We're doing it as a way to model language, and we're not expecting or we're not demanding that the child imitate back to us what we are saying to them on using the AAC system.
All right, so as Maggie's kind of already touched on, aided language input is where we are going to speak our words, what we're saying, using AAC. So we are going to talk on in AAC. We have to fully immerse our kids if they're going to learn how to communicate on their AAC system. That's a whole different language. If we want them to learn that, we have to immerse them in it. Just like us, if we're learning a foreign language, I have to be immersed in that environment and immersed by other people speaking it in order for me to really quickly learn how to communicate and use that language. So for our kids, it's the same thing. We have to speak using AAC.
All right, so let's take a minute and think of a child in your life. So think back, what was his or her first word? Maybe it was mama, dada, milk, or up. Some of those common first words, they're pretty similar across kids when you hear like what first words are, because they're really valuable in that environment for the child. It gets them what they want. Then also think about how many times that child heard that word before speaking it. And the research would say that they probably heard it over 2,000 times, probably even more than that, thousands and thousands and thousands of times. They heard that word, you using it in context, just talking to the child. So you were immersing them in the language. They heard that word thousands of times before they then used it. So the point of that is that language is always learned through modeling, us talking in that language throughout the day in context during meaningful and motivating activities. So that I think is just amazing to think about how many times a kid did hear a word first before they say it.
Right, and if you want to think about another way to go at it, have you ever had the experience of hearing a child use a word, phrase, or expression that is a direct imitation of a familiar adult? So we've all had this happen where we've said something and then they directly imitate us using the same exact words, the same intonation, same inflection. They're saying exactly the same way in an appropriate way during an appropriate situation. The reason that they do that is because, again, language is always learned through modeling. They saw us and heard us use that word during this situation. So when it happened again, or it happened to them, then they directly imitated and used it because we modeled that for them.
All right, so think about when you would hear a baby use or say the sounds mama or baba. How do you respond when a child does that? I think we all would say we get really excited and we assign meaning to it. So when our little ones say mama for the first time, we're like, you said mom, you're right. We get excited and we assign meaning to it. We repeat it, we rephrase it, we expand on it, and we enthusiastically encourage them to keep saying it, right? So that they say it more. And we see some changes occurring there. So when we are continuing to give that repeated feedback of being excited and assigning meaning, we would typically see an increase in frequency of the child then saying those same sounds, and then in that joint attention of us connecting together. Because language is shaped by the feedback that we give of that communicative intent. It's shaped by us getting excited and assigning meaning to it. That's another way language is then learned after hearing all those models.
All right, so this is so powerful to think about as well. So a typically developing child gets 4,370 waking hours of spoken language input before they begin to speak at around 18 months. So they're getting all those hours of us modeling that language like we've been talking about and repeating these words and using them in different contexts. If a child learning to use AAC only gets input using their aided language tool 2 times a week for 20 to 30 minutes, aka pretty much only in speech therapy sessions, it will take them 84 years to have the same amount of experience with their AAC system and device as an 18-month-old child has with spoken language. This is such powerful research that was done by Jane Corson. And I mean, it just really brings it home that we need to be speaking in AAC and immersing them in that language and teaching them how to use that language and those words for different purposes and in different situations, so that they can really become effective and efficient communicators. So, as I just said,
Again,
in natural situations, all the time is crucial. I forgot that was there.
well, it bears repeating, right?
Yes, yes.
Very important. All right, so language, though, doesn't just magically happen for anybody, right? We have to teach it in context through modeling of the language. The same is the same idea that language does not magically happen when a student is given a speech generating device or when they are given a manual communication board. Aided language input is needed because we have to teach it. And I saw this firsthand, and you guys might have experienced this too. So the beginning of the school year, my son got a Chromebook to bring home so that he could do remote learning. So that's super exciting. He got this device, right, that is going to allow him to do so many things. But he did not magically know how to use it. He had never used a computer a lot before. So I had to teach him in context. I had to show him how to use it. I had to model that through immersing him in me using it while he was watching and us doing it during activities that were meaningful and motivating to him. So with any device or any tool, it doesn't just magically appear, especially when we're talking about language. We have to teach it. And how do we do that? Aided language input.
All right, and to further explain what aided language input or stimulation looks like, there's this great video by Chris Begay that we absolutely love, and it further just shows how putting a device or any kind of AAC system in front of a child is not just going to magically solve their communication impairment, that you have to have that teaching and instruction there as well.
created using PrAACtical.
All right. So love that video, right? We use it all the time during our family night trainings as well, because it's just a clear depiction of why you need to provide aided language input all the time and naturally throughout the day. It's crucial to their development.
And I really liked there at the end how he shared, like he showed that it took time, all the calendar pages flipping, that it's not something that's going to happen right away, that it's that immersion and it takes time to develop. And actually that's one of the modules we'll have later on down the line about time to develop the language skills. So yeah, just great video. All right, so aided language input, again, that's us speaking in AAC. This will model different language for the child, and through that modeling of language, we're going to be teaching our students word meaning. We're going to be teaching them where words are located on the AAC system. We'll be teaching how to combine words to create meaning or to change meaning. We will be showing students how to fix mistakes. So, oh, I need to clear that. I need to go back to the home page. Oh, it's not under that category. It's under a different category. So we'll be teaching those skills as well. Modeling will help our students see how to think aloud to find words. That's something we really love to do, right, Jeanna? Like when we're going for a word, like if we're looking in a specific category, or we'll be like, oh, I wonder if it's under the group of fruits. Well, let's go to eat and then food. So we're talking out loud while we're doing those steps to help model that process. And then again, we'll be showing our students how to use different tools of their AAC system, such as, you know, the clear button or the back button or the home button. So those are all the different things that us talking in AAC throughout the day will help our students learn.
I really like the fix mistakes one too, because down here as it says, communication is messy.
Yes.
I think sometimes, and I'm guilty of this too, whenever I first started doing therapy and everything, was that you really felt like you had to almost be perfect. And
Yes.
that I have to know where these words are that I'm going to be targeting. And, you know, I have to go right to it. When in real life, our kids need to see that it's okay to be human. We're not going to know where every word is, that I'm going to do mishits as well, especially on, I have big fingers, and on those little devices, I'm going to hit the wrong symbol, and that's okay. And what we do when that happens. So communication is messy as we're talking. Sometimes it's messy. And so it's okay. We need to show that it's okay to be messy if you're using the device as well.
Jeanna, I don't know if you've experienced doing that when you're like been making some videos for asynchronous learning things. So, and it feels so awkward for some, like, no, it's okay. I'm going to show, be like, oh, that's not what I meant to say. I meant to say that word instead.
Oh, yeah.
It's good to practice being okay with making those mistakes, because it's something to teach and something to show as an example, because yes, it is super messy.
And then you just teach those compensatory strategies, which is very powerful for our kids as well.
Exactly.
All right, so when we also do aided language input, we're also teaching our children how to have control and influence over their environment, as well as how to participate actively in their environment. This one is huge, expressing their individuality, you know, showing us what they're interested in or what they're not interested in, and really getting to know who they are, what their likes and dislikes are. For them we teach them how to demonstrate their understanding of what's going on in their environment, what's being taught to them, what they're seeing, and being able to, this is crucial, build and sustain interpersonal relationships. I mean, this is really what communication really comes down to,
right?
Is being able, to have that conversation and have that relationship and develop friendships with other people, and then that not only being able to build it, but then sustain it. And maintain that and develop those lifelong relationships that everyone desires to have and wants to have. So language is super powerful, and it affects so much within their life.
All right, again, aided language input, us talking in AAC, creating that immersive environment. It models language and it teaches our students how to express their wants and needs, how to request, right? We know that that's often one of those first things that we start with, because it's super motivating and meaningful to be able to get what you want in the moment. It also can teach us, our students, how to have social closeness, how to approach somebody and ask them a question, or tell them a story about yourself or something that you're excited about. It teaches our students how to comment, how to tell us likes and dislikes, how to refuse, such an important one, for safety and for personal safety things. So refusal is super important. It teaches our students how to respond to questions, how to respond during turn-taking conversations. Modeling teaches our students how to ask questions and seek information, and then how to share information about themselves, how to tell a story, tell us what they did over the weekend or what they ate at lunch. So the takeaway there, language has multiple functions, and us providing that aided language input through natural context throughout the day will help to teach our students those different functions of communication.
And it's important for us to provide that aided language input naturally, and to speak our words while using whatever their system is. So you want to make sure and be cognizant that whenever you are providing aided language input, that it's using the picture symbols that that student is also using. And whenever we are doing this naturally and showing them how to use words for different functions of communication, as Maggie was just talking about, that is something that we're doing naturally and showing them conversations and everything how to do throughout the day. It's not us sitting there and saying, okay, tell me this, say this on your device, because that's just an imitation task and that's not communication. If you go back to module 1, where we discussed that communication is between two communication partners, and it's when the other partner doesn't know what's going to be said. So that's that whole part of communication. That's what we're trying to achieve with our children. We want them to tell us things that we don't know that they're going to say, because that's when we're really having real, true communication between us. It's reciprocal. It is not an imitation task where we tell them to do this or say this.
All right, so while we're providing this aided language input, the role of us as the communication partner is to show the student how to talk with their tool by us talking with their tool. And then also the other big one is for us to provide opportunities for them to want to use their tool and for them to want to communicate with us. Because hint, and I think we all know this, right? We can't make someone talk. We can't do it. So we have to make them want to communicate. It's up to us to make things exciting, motivating, meaningful. We have to provide those opportunities. So like Jeanna said on the slide before, communication is not compliance. If we turn these communication opportunities into a compliance activities, our students probably won't respond. That's not true communication. That isn't what they want to be doing with their AAC tool. They want to have that opportunity to learn how to use their tool and have the opportunity to talk with it to us based on the things that they want to say. So we're going to be breaking that down coming up here about different ways to provide those meaningful, motivating, real context activities and opportunities to create the want and the desire to communicate.
Yeah, I think you said it just perfectly there, that whenever we make it motivating for them, they see the value in it, and they're going to want to actively seek out those opportunities. All right, so we have a couple of videos to demonstrate natural aided language input. So we're going to watch this one here first.
Words, I like this. Yes, you want to wear them? Okay, let me show you. They go right here on your arm.
Yay!
Yay! That's exciting, Lily. Look at that.
Yay!
Yay! Look.
Yeah.
I like it. Do you like it?
No.
No! You don't want it on? I think you do like it.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for showing it to me.
Okay, I absolutely love this video because I think it's something that would happen to me. You put so much time and energy into making something that you know they're gonna like, and you're so excited for it, and then that happens where it's like, yeah, but then walks away.
But she did, like, it was perfect. It was her just talking in AAC. There was no compliance activity involved. There was no, well, now you say it on here, touch what I just said, or no, you need to tell me you like it on here. She was just doing it naturally in context. And although she said she didn't like it, it seemed like maybe she did. So it was pretty motivating to her.
For sure. Okay, and so then we have another, oh. Huh. Oh, there it was. Okay.
There it was.
For a second, I thought our video was lost.
I know. It was like, this is a good one. I want to watch it.
All right, so here's a teacher in front of a class providing aided language input, and look how she naturally just provides that aided language input as she's going about the introduction to the lesson. Oh, okay. Let's try this again.
Yes! Thumbs up. Today is gonna be a good day. Okay. Are you ready? Guess what? Guess what? We got something. But we do not know what in it.
Yes.
Wait a second. Wait. Oh, what do I have? What did we get? What should I do? I should break it open. You think I should break it open? You think I should open it? And should I take out whatever is inside? Ooh, it's so exciting. You want to listen? Go sit down. Okay.
Me.
Okay. Me too. What could it be? What could it be?
I mean, the motivation that she is creating through that, by her excitement is just, it's contagious. I mean, I'm like, I'm
Contagious.
in it. But her and Maggie and I also talked about this before when we first saw them. But we want a board like that. Like if we were teachers, and
That board is awesome.
board, like full page symbols. But she is just naturally providing that aided language input for a variety of communication functions, and to really draw in that attention and that desire for them to respond and want to communicate as well. So
I know, it's just a great video all around.
We'll refer back to other things that you saw in these videos as we go through the slides as well, and how she was other features of her aided language input.
Okay, so aided language input. So when we are immersing kids in aided language input for modeling of language, one of the things that we might focus in on is labeling. So labeling is great. With labeling, you can build vocabulary. So if you look at that picture, we could label what we see. We could say girl, boy, tree, bridge, ladder, water. But with only labeling, we're not really able to share what we want to share about this picture. We're not able to make meaning with our language. So when we are able to use core words, and we touched on core words in the first module, we are able then to express different functions, and we're able to make meaning with our words. So they play, up in the tree, go over, cool water. So a takeaway here is that when we are thinking about words and vocabulary that we want to be providing aided language input for, we again want to focus in a lot on core vocabulary, also have those fun nouns in there, but a good tip is to do descriptive teaching or descriptive talking. So instead of just labeling, we can use core words to describe what's happening in a picture, or describe what we're seeing, and that can help expose our kids to a lot of different words and to core words to help them learn those words that they can then use to make meaning in other environments and settings. So yes, use descriptive language.
All right, so while you're providing aided language input, you want to provide ample amount of opportunities for that meaningful engagement, because again, if you're making it meaningful, our students are going to see the value in it and they're going to want to actively engage with us. But this isn't something that you have to change necessarily, like what you're doing throughout your day, or do something new. We already have enough of that in our lives, right? This is not that. It's just use the routines that you already have and build in these opportunities. There's no planning or extra stuff that you have to do. Just use how your day already flows and those routines, and then you're just going to build in these opportunities for you to provide that aided language input for different purposes of communication. And we're going to go into a little bit more depth on that.
I love how it says it right there. No planning needed. Like once I hear that, I'm sold, because it's like,
Oh,
I can do that.
Big sigh of relief.
Yeah, if I don't have to plan it, I can do it. So I am sold. All right. So aided language inputs. So one of the things that we can do is provide examples and models by us talking in AAC with aided language input of core vocabulary and daily routines. Like we said, if you take the routines in your classroom, you don't have to plan anything. You're already going to have a structure and a platform to work in this aided language input. So mealtime and snack time. And we love that idea of just chit chat time. So just talking. So during snack time, this is a great time. We know that we often will use requesting during this time and work on that and demonstrate that, because it is a natural time. Like we want something and we want to get it. So it is very common to do that. So that's great. But there are other things that we can do, other functions of communication that are easy to work in at this time. So again, there's that example of a request. You want cookie. But then we can comment and we can describe, that looks good, yum. We can express our preferences. I like that. We can demonstrate how you can request assistance, help open, and then we can show how to refuse, not that. Like that's a very powerful one. So there's lots of different functions that we can work in during snack time. But then this is a great time just to chat and just to talk about what's going on. Usually at home when we're having a meal, right? That's like when we talk about our day. So work that in when you're having a snack or at lunchtime with your students. Oh, that's my friend. How's your day going? Did you see your favorite show? I can't wait for art class. You're just demonstrating the function of conversation, of turn taking, and just showing that communication is about connecting and having fun. So, I mean, I could just really see these things, like saying these naturally during the time. This isn't anything different than what we're already doing, right? And then as our meme says here, we just need to model all the time, model all the time, model all the time. And that's as much of the singing that I'll do, Jeanna. I'm sorry.
I was waiting for it if you would do it. So.
Not going to do it.
Yeah, you don't want to hear my voice, so we're going to try.
It's not happening.
So another example of how you can naturally embed this aided language input into another daily routine would be on arrival time and they're unpacking their bag. Some different purposes of communication that we could provide that aided language input for would be to give them directives and say, get it out, or let's get more, if they need to get more out of their backpack. That too, you know, keep going. There must be a lot in that backpack.
Well, right now, like, yeah, everything we have to bring in and take out every day, there's a lot in that backpack.
And then more directives that we could do, you know, put it here if there's a certain basket or place that we need to put our items, or hang it on the hook, you know, put it in, put it here, and then, you know, all done. They can request assistance again. You know, you want help unzipping your jacket or unzipping the book bag or hanging it up. You can do that. So commenting, look at what I have. So especially if it was show and tell day and they got to bring in something, look what I have. Or if they have a new article of clothing that they want to show off. I mean, kids love to show off. So giving them the opportunity and showing them how to be able to say that. And then commenting, are ready? And then let's go in.
Another natural time that we already have embedded in our day that's a routine is leisure time. So maybe your different centers or playtime or break time. So we all have a break time in our day. So this is a natural time again to work in aided language input because it's a routine. There's no planning needed. So let's think about the idea of building with toys. So building with blocks or Legos or something. So again, there's all these different functions of communication that we can target. Put on more. It goes up, up, up. Put it there. Does it fit? Does it go? And I like here that she's sharing, like I just said, does it fit? Fit might not be a word that's like easily accessible on an AAC system, especially if you're using a manual communication board. So you kind of have to think in core. So instead of saying, does it fit? We could say, does it go? And that way we're able to demonstrate that word on the AAC system. So sometimes you have to change your language up a little bit, but once you start doing it and get practice, it becomes more natural. It falls down. So then we can comment, we can make exclamations, we can exclaim at how excited we are. We can talk about turn taking, my turn, you do it. And then again, we can demonstrate how we can request assistance, can I help? So it's just a very natural time to work in that aided language input.
All right, and then another leisure activity that we could naturally provide that aided language input, and as an example here, is reading books and magazines. So commenting for sure, I like or don't like that. Let me see it. I mean, I feel like I get told that all the time by my kids. Let me do it. Let me see it. My kids at home and my kids there. Drawing our attention to something, you know, look at that, especially with books, because there's always usually something that happens in the book that really gets your interest. And so being able to draw another person's attention to it. You know, turn it, giving directives, making predictions, and asking questions, what's next? Or what is that? To get another book, giving you another directive, or we're going to get the same book and do it again. Protesting, not that, especially with books, if it's not an interest, you know, being able to express that as well, or tell us that they want something different.
So another idea when we're thinking through aided language input, and we've touched on this, is that we want to provide ample opportunities for meaningful engagement. So without that engagement piece, then our students aren't going to be invested in what we're doing. And without that engagement piece, learning doesn't necessarily follow. We really have to have that engagement. It has to be motivating and meaningful. So another thing we can do is set up the environment for communication opportunities. So this can be just some slight tweaks that we make to the classroom to help to elicit communication. So maybe the favorite toys aren't just like laid out on the floor right when the students come in. Maybe they're up out of reach a bit, inside but out of reach. So that way we are inviting opportunities to come in, request, or to get your attention to get that toy down. We're creating some opportunities there. We can also manage materials that we need to complete or participate in a task. So instead of giving all of the thing, you just give a little bit. You leave out some key pieces that maybe would then invite commenting or requesting. So like when at snack time, the example here, you give the pudding, but you forget the spoons, or you get the coloring sheets and where are the crayons? And Jeanna and I were talking about this the other day, like, for us, like this just happens naturally because like,
happens naturally.
we're forgetting things. So it's like, you're right, where are the spoons? I forgot. Like, oh, another idea I really like, and this just happens again naturally, is like, you don't worry about checking the glue sticks beforehand because you know how they always dry out. So you just like give them, and if they're dried out, then that creates an opportunity for the student to like get your attention and tell you these are no good. And it's like, oh, you're right. Like I forgot these glue sticks are all dried out. Like this will happen naturally. It's just not anticipating all of the things ahead of time and kind of adding in that little bit of a silly factor. So those are a few ways to kind of create some extra communication opportunities.
But I think it's also important for us, because we talk about in other trainings that we do, Maggie, like don't do it to the point where you're sabotaging every step, because communication is already hard for our students that we're doing this with. It is already a struggle. So if we break an activity down and to where they're having to request every single thing, and we're creating an opportunity every single time, that takes the naturalness out of it and it makes it frustrating. And so
Yeah.
it's like, you just want, again, balance, just like
Just
with
natural.
friends, you
Yeah.
want balance, you want
Yeah.
balance here. So, and as Maggie and I have talked about here, it comes naturally. You really don't have to worry about this one.
Yeah.
It's going to happen naturally.
It's going to happen. We're forgetting things that happen. So just as a natural way. Yeah. Don't do it on top of it.
All right, provide ample opportunities for meaningful engagement by teaching repair strategies. So we touched on this just a little bit ago when we talked about fixing our mistakes with words and everything. We need to teach those compensatory strategies and these repair strategies for our students to be able to use whenever they're communicating. So being able to express that, you know, I don't understand, or I don't know where that word is, or I don't know the answer. And then how to go about that, either finding the word and kind of walking through that process, or just being able to convey alone, I don't understand during activity. Can you say that again, or say it a different way? Can be very powerful and meaningful for them.
All right, another way to create that engagement in just natural, meaningful ways is through selection making. So some ways to think through this is to avoid anticipating the student's wants or needs. So I know, like, you know, as a parent, you often know what your child is going to want. You know their routine, so you can anticipate it and you can give them the things they need even before they ask. And it's the same in the classroom. We get in a schedule and we know what's coming up next and we know what our students need. But if we're always anticipating those needs and giving our students everything right away without them like initiating that communication, then we're kind of taking away an opportunity for them then to have a communication opportunity. So if we just kind of step back from anticipating and allow the child the opportunity and the space to maybe request what they need first, try that. Then we can also allow the child to, within the framework of what we're doing during the day, giving as many opportunities for the child to select and to make choices as they can. So they could select the colors that they want to use. They can select the materials for the activity. They could select the peers, or maybe they can select the staff member they want to sit next to or work with. They can select the the structure of the tasks. Think about the day and think about all the different ways you can provide selection making throughout the day. So there's probably lots of different opportunities in there. But when we're doing this, we want to make sure that we give an out. So if we're giving the choice between three things, like you can have the blue crayon, the orange crayon, or the green crayon. We want to make sure that we are allowing students to actually make personal choices. So we like to give an out. So instead, maybe say you can have the green crayon, the orange crayon, or you can have a different crayon. That way they're really getting the opportunity to have an out, because maybe they don't want any of those three colors. They wanted that one over there. They wanted the pink that you didn't choose. So if we give them that different option, then it allows them to really think about what they want and to communicate their thoughts and feelings. So we really want to give it out. I want something different. It gives them the ability to make choices to the communication partner, true choices. Plus also, no is a valid choice. Do you want the purple, the blue, or a different color? No. And they're probably letting us know they don't want colors at all right now. And that's a valid choice as well. So something to keep in mind when you're thinking through choice making and selection making.
All right, and then something else whenever you're providing those ample opportunities for meaningful engagement is to establish those expectations, to let the child know that, like, they're going to have a turn during the conversation or during the activity, and that's going to be their turn to be able to invite them in to be able to communicate with us as well. We really like to use those nonverbal strategies here. So giving them that pause time, that wait time, which is not only good for thinking and processing time, but then it lets them know this is your time to speak. Giving them that expectant look where we're going to be looking at them like, I'm waiting on you. What would you like to say to me? Or what do you want to say about this topic? And everything. So looking for the response and letting them know it is your time to speak. What would you like to say?
All right, another way to create that meaningful engagement is through commenting. So when we're having an interaction, we can expand on that with a comment or by offering more information. So this could be if the student says one word, then we are like, yes, and then we add to it or we comment back to that. Commenting is great because like, there's no like right or wrong comment, right? Like we can just comment about what we're seeing and what we're doing, and we can comment about what we think the child is seeing and what the child is doing. So there's just like so many opportunities for different communication functions within commenting. So we really like that. And then another fun way to get the child to comment back to you to create that meaningful engagement is to do something unconventional or out of the norm. So that's kind of surprises and adds that fun factor. So put a hat on your foot or write your name with a fork. It's silly, right? And you're leaning into the silliness to help get them engaged in there. You know, you see those in videos. Jeanna, you were sharing like in a movie this happened, right?
I always think of like, whenever I think of this, I think of that movie Big Daddy. I'm probably really showing my age with that movie, but Big Daddy, and like, I mean, Adam Sandler's just struggling to build rapport and get that child to communicate, and like he bonks himself on the head or something, and then all of a sudden the kid starts laughing, and then once
I do remember that scene.
yeah, and so I just think of that, like whenever we're really struggling and with a kid to build that rapport and everything, being silly, being unconventional, you know, doing something out of the ordinary, and just really fun and down to earth can really invite and elicit that communication that we want, and be able provides us with that opportunity to build that rapport and to have that engagement and that back and forth with our kids. So I keep it in the back of my mind.
A good movie.
It is a good movie. All right, so engagement really is the foundation for learning. I mean, we know this. Our kids have to be active and want to engage, and they're going to learn. What is the research out there that, you know, with play-based learning, Maggie, you know, they can acquire skills so much faster, faster than, you know, through a natural any other learning situation. So we really want them to be actively engaged, and how do we get that is by them knowing and being active participants. So they have to see the value in this communication, that they're going to be able to have control over their environment. They're going to be able to share and show and comment on their likes and dislikes and really show their personality. They can demonstrate their understanding in a variety of ways, and not just like in a testing format of way, but in other ways as well, and just really be engaged in that learning process.
So that natural aided language input, those, you know, what we've been talking about, this can help elicit active engagement with our students. So oftentimes students with complex communication needs might have few opportunities to engage in really meaningful verbal discourse about their learning, right? Because first of all, maybe they are new to an AAC tool, and then maybe they haven't had a lot of AAC teaching through that tool with aided language input. So while that's the case, if we up our game and we provide that aided language input in order to model language, then we can give students that opportunity to become more active participants in their learning in the classroom. Typically, learning interactions may often be limited to just choice making or us questioning the students over that like question and response like that we're expecting from a student. And again, like we talked about, that can really limit the students' engagement with the activity and their enjoyment in the activity, and not create that active engagement that we want. And again, that questioning that we might get into that habit and that pattern, it takes the form of testing. So we're not really teaching anything, we're more testing. So when we're asking all those questions, that kind of takes away that learning part and that teaching part. So again, if we take a step back and we really focus in on that aided language input for meaningful context for creating active engagement, then we can help up the learning opportunities for our students to learn their AAC system.
All right, so we're going to go into each of these more in depth, but 5 ways to really speak AAC is to use verbal referencing, which Maggie and I absolutely love. Use self-talk and think alouds, to comment, to be responsive, and to attribute meaning to really build those connections. And we're going to go in depth into each of these here.
All right, so verbal referencing, this is when we are observing what the student is doing, and then we describe it verbally in order to attribute meaning. So we do this naturally with little ones, with babies, when we observe that they're crying and we know it's probably like close to time to eat. We give it a verbal reference. We describe it, oh, I see you're crying. And then we attribute meaning to it. I wonder if you're hungry. And this is just natural things that we're doing throughout our day. It's the same thing that we want to take and apply in the classroom. So observe your students, describe what you see, and then attribute meaning. So, oh, I see you smiling. I think you like it. And those colored words here, you could think about those are the words that you would provide aided language input for on the student's AAC system. Oh, I'm observing you looking out the window. Oh, you are looking out the window. Do you see the birds? Because you go look out the window and you're attributing meaning based on where you see that student looking. You observe the student reaching for the puzzle. So you describe their action. You are reaching for the puzzle. And then you attribute meaning. Let's play it. Oh, this is a good one. Like if you see a student pushing something away or leaving the area, you observe that behavior, then you describe it. I can see you don't like this. And then you attribute meaning. Let's get something different. And then I like this one. When you hear a student like making noises or, gesturing and doing body language to communicate, this is a good one. So you observe that. Oh, I heard a give a verbal reference, describe it, right? And then attribute meaning. I wonder if you want mama to help. So those are just really great ways to show the student that the ways that they're communicating with us, that we are hearing that, we are seeing that, and that is meaningful to us as their communication partner. But then we're showing them how they can also do it with language on their AAC system. So it's a great strategy that we love to use for aided language input.
All right, so then another strategy that we like to use and that you can use is self-talk. So it's the act of or practice of talking to oneself, either loud or silently and mentally. And we're going to do this out loud for our kids to teach them this skill. But Maggie and I talk a lot. We do this all the time. Yeah. Just for ourselves. we self-talk ourselves through. Right?
All day long, we're talking out loud to ourselves, right?
But this can be broken down. I think we all know what self-talk is, but it can really be broken down on how you provide aided language input with it. So one way is to describe with AAC. So right now in therapy, with most of my kids, I'm doing the Halloween squishy books. And so we're really talking about like how the different substances like feel when we're squishing and squeezing those bags. And since it's Halloween themed, like a lot of the stuff I'm like, ew, yucky, or it's gross, or it's cold, like the gel will feel cold through the bag. So I'm providing aided language input as we're doing that activity for all those different things that we're seeing and that we're feeling or hearing in our environment. Explain with AAC. So as you're giving directions or doing an activity, we're going to put our papers in the finished basket over here. And then we're going to go to PE. So as you're explaining what's going to happen in their schedule or what's going to happen for an activity, you can be using those core words on the AAC system to point out the main actions with those statements. You can problem solve and explore by verbalizing as you use the AAC as well. So Maggie, I think, gave an example before with the fruit and the food, but if we don't know where an item is, so if we're wanting to say the word bat, I'm like, I don't know where the word bat is. Being able to just say that out loud, like, I don't know where the word bat is, but I know it's an animal. So let's go to our groups where our new nouns are. Let's go to animals. And let's see, we think, no, animal's a bird or animal that flies. So maybe it's in birds. Oh, it's not there. Let's go to a different one. Or I can't find it still. So I'm going to go to I'm either going to spell it or we can use the word finding feature and find it that way. So showing how to work through those. And guys, it's so powerful when you actually see it come to light. I was telling Maggie, I think for the first time I've seen a student use Word Finder, and it's happened to me twice in the past week. But, you know, I talked with the teams, and I've been demonstrating and providing aided language input on this strategy. And I've had 2 different kids use this strategy with me during a therapy session. I was crying inside, as well as shouting and cheering and throwing my hands up, because they're working through that process because everyone around them is providing that aided language input on this.
Well, Jeanna, not to interrupt there, but that like just made me think about it. I wonder like how many times they saw that being modeled, that strategy, you know, before then they used it. They probably saw it hundreds of times, you know, throughout the months here. So it's just exciting.
For
like
years too, because
yeah.
it's so I mean, with one of them, it's probably been years of it. And then another one is relatively new, but I mean, we've had them for a couple of years. So I think that goes back to that time for growth
Yeah.
that we've talked about too. I think a key phrase that's being thrown out there a lot this past year is that it's, you know, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon with AAC, and that you need to keep that in mind. And then whenever it does happen, it is so fulfilling to see that.
It's worth all that time.
It makes it seem like nothing. All right. And then again, fixing mistakes. We kind of talked about this before, like, oops, I said the wrong word, or that's not the word that I meant. Let me go back and hit it again. And then commenting with AAC. This can be so powerful. We'll go into this one a little bit more here, but, you know, speaking our thoughts and our opinions and showing our children how they can express their interests and their likes and dislikes to us through the use of their AAC system.
All right, so commenting. Again, we love using the strategy of just commenting. And this is a verbal or a written remark, expressing an opinion or a reaction. So why we love commenting is that it's always relevant. So there's no like right or wrong thing to comment about. It's about what you're seeing and what you're thinking and about what your preferences are. And then you could also do like make comments about what you see the student doing. You can say, oh, I think you like that. I think you don't like that. I think you think this is fun. So you can make comments about you and what the student is doing. It fosters engagement because there's no questioning, right? There's like, we're not questioning the student and expecting a response. This is just talking. We're just making comments about what we see and what we think. So it really helps to foster that engagement and helps to be inviting to the student. It provides for meaningful feedback because when we see, like going back to that verbal referencing, like we're making comments based on what we see, and it helps to provide feedback to the student based on what they're doing. So it helps to give them meaningful feedback about their communication attempts. It can foster social closeness and build rapport, right? Like you know, like when you are making comments to somebody, like you don't want necessarily like you don't want them to give you advice. You just want them to listen to you and comment back, right? And when they do that, you feel heard and you feel validated and you like feel close to that person where you're just commenting back and forth. So it's this thing for our students. And then it grows language because we're able to make comments about like all day long, what we're seeing, what's happening. It's just like for me, I felt like this is one of those ways that got me on board with aided language input. Like I was able to wrap my head around making comments all day long. So when they're getting all of those exposures, they're going to grow language. We can show how you put words together to change meaning and to expand on language. We can take those attempts from the student and reflect and expand on them. So those all are different ways to grow language for our students as well.
I think commenting is the way, like you said, it got you on board. It really is the way that really invites that communication because you're inviting those opportunities for them to comment, like you said, talk about what's happening, but then also share and build those relationships and develop friendships. Because I mean, if you think about the core of a friendship, being able to express our likes and dislikes, oh, we both like this, and then something to talk about. And it takes that testing out. Like if you can kind of maybe start with providing aided language input on commenting alone, it takes that testing away and it's going to automatically up, I think, the motivation and engagement and interest from our students.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, so another thing to think about, whenever you're providing aided language input is to be responsive. So if you've attended one of our communication make and take material trainings, this is a lot like the s'mores model that we talk about in that training. But you want to be respectful to our students and show that we are listening, and whatever they are communicating to us, that, you know, it's valued. So we can do this by repeating and recasting whatever they said to us for confirmation or clarity on what they said. We can reflect and validate it as well. So if a student, you know, says something about like mama during a session, mom's obviously not there. Mom was maybe not even in the activity or the book that we're talking about, but we could say, oh, you said mom, yeah. You'll see mom after school is over. So I'm repeating what they said, I'm recasting it back to them, and then I'm giving them that validation that, like, yes, I hear what you're saying. And this is like when it can be appropriate later on, or when you'll see them. Pause and offer wait time and think time. This is great for our students. I think we've talked about that a lot during the first module. We're going to have a whole module on it. But it's also really powerful for us as communication partners, because when we give that wait time and that think time and we're pausing more, I've at least found, especially during like books and shared reading activities, that I make more thoughtful statements and more open-ended questions whenever I'm using this strategy. And it's going to invite more communication from our students, and we'll get more engagement and better interaction from them. To show engagement, be multimodal ourselves and engage reciprocally to them, actively engaging with them, and then give them, as Maggie's talked about, a way out. So being able to say no, being able to reject what we said or protested, refuse, or say that they want something different as well.
And all of this kind of filters down to this, that we are attributing meaning to the communication attempts that our students are doing. All students communicate. So it's up to us to attribute meaning to that and to show our students that we are listening to them and we are getting the meaning out of that, because it helps to build up the students to know that they are heard, that we heard their communication opportunity or their communication attempts, whatever that might have been, that we're validating them, and that they're a valued communication partner with us. If you don't feel validated, and valued, you really don't necessarily want to engage with that person, right? You're so much more willing to work with that person and to interact with that person when you know that they are hearing you and that they value you. So by doing these steps, that is the takeaway that our students will be getting, that we're hearing them and that we validate their communication opportunities and their communication attempts, and that we value them as our communication partner. So those are super powerful and helps to really build that rapport and to make this all meaningful for the students so that they want to engage with us and they want to keep doing the work with us. You know, we want to keep them engaged.
Okay, and then I also want to mention that on those previous 3 slides where we really went into in-depth, there are supplemental handouts that go even further in depth of describing it and giving examples that will be attached to this video as well in the description. Okay, so as you're doing aided language input, we talked about how it's not an imitation or compliance task. So what is required from our students at this time whenever we are using this teaching strategy? Nada. Nothing. Okay.
Nothing.
But we are expecting some type of feedback. We're not expecting compliance. We're not expecting imitation of what we're saying. But we are expecting to get some kind of feedback from them. So maybe some enthusiastic body language, letting us know that they do like the activity, or, you know, that they're with us. Increased engagement, so maybe some more eye contact to the activity and to us, providing that aided language input. Maybe they're going to do some babbling or some exploration on their AAC system and looking for words. They may imitate the words or the phrases that we have provided that aided language input for. They may do some requesting during this time. They may either just keep engaging with us and sustain the activity, or they may turn away, look away, and want to reject the activity. They may comment during this time. Some of these things may happen. If they're not, though, if you're not getting any kind of feedback, that is the time whenever you need to reassess what you're doing. I mean, all of us, we all do this in therapy. If we're not getting any kind of feedback from the student, we need to reassess the materials that we're using, the strategies that we're using, our level of enthusiasm and engagement, and change something about it, because we should be getting some kind of feedback from our students, not any kind of imitation or compliance, but some kind of feedback that shows that they are with us.
Yeah. I love the distinction between that, where it's like, we've talked about it. This is not compliance. This is not that they need to say it or touch it or do it. But yeah, like when we're doing an activity, how do we know if a student's engaged if we're not seeing something? And again, if we want them to be engaged, we want it to be motivating and meaningful, because without that, learning may not be happening. So yeah, those are great things to look for so that you can assess yourself as the teacher or the communication partner or as the therapist in the moment, to reassess what you're doing. Because I know that maybe that was not a step at first that I was doing when I was like starting in with aided language input. So those poor students sat through some really boring activities because I was not, reassessing myself in that moment and switching it up. So that's so important to keep that engagement there. So I love this slide.
All right, so aided language input strategies for sometimes we need help to bring our attention to what we're providing that aided language input for and the words that we're targeting during an activity. So ways that you could do this is through a light tech display or, this manual communication board. We like to use a dry erase marker. I like to use this as a visual support for like myself during an activity or for the team. Like these are words that we could target during this activity, and it really just draws your eyes into it.
And then other ways you can help draw that attention into that aided language input, besides like changing the activity and changing how you're presenting the activity, bring in maybe some fun little focus finders, laser pointers, some flashlights to just add some fun attention. We like wearing those little eyeball rings things on your finger, that you point to. We'll get like little wands and we'll point to the symbols as well. You can get eraser toppers, so you can really kind of like make it fit your students' interest. Just some different fun ideas, thinking out of the box to help draw attention to that point on the AAC system to help the student, to help you get that feedback that you're looking for during aided language input.
And then don't be surprised if they take your tool and then communicate using that or provide aided language input to you.
Yep. So, that's the best when that happens.
I know. I'm like, sure, go ahead. All right. Other strategies to help like bring in that attention is low tech sentence building. So I like this where it's, it's a board. They've got Velcro then on each of the symbols, and then they've cut out and laminated other symbols to put on top. And then there's a strip of Velcro up at the top so that you can manipulate those symbols and just really then draw in their attention to the words that you're using and that communication function that you're trying to provide that aided language input for.
And again, this goes back to the idea that we talked about at the beginning, that we don't automatically know how to use a tool when it's put in front of us. Like this quote here, having a communication device doesn't make you an effective communicator any more than having a piano makes you a musician, right? Like I can sit down at a piano and that doesn't mean I can play it. I have to be taught it. I have to learn it through the people around me teaching me. It's the same with our AAC devices and our AAC systems. We have to teach it. And how do we do it? One of the ways is that aided language input, speaking AAC all the time. We aren't waiting for our students to prove anything. We're just going to jump in and start doing that. We're going to talk AAC all the time.
All right, so to recap from today's module, AAC is that umbrella term. It means lots of different things. And all language, I mean, we started this module talking about how, you know, from babies, how we model the language and they can learn to say the words. All of it is learned through modeling. Foreign languages too, we talked about that. Everything is modeled and learned through that modeling. So we have to immerse our kids in an environment where we are speaking AAC to them for them to be able to learn that language. And aided language input means speaking in AAC. You are going to speak the words that you are saying, not the words that you want them to say, because again, it's not imitation or compliance. You're going to speak the words that you're saying on their AAC system. Things to do would be to use verbal referencing, use that commenting, self-talk, being responsive, and attributing meaning to their communication attempts are all things to do whenever we're providing that aided language input. And sometimes, as we've just got done discussing, you have to think outside the box to teach and speak AAC, to really get that motivation, get that engagement, and then they will be active participants and learners. And we have some resources.
Yeah, so again, we shared Project Core, Patent. They have those Power AAC modules and a lot of things on their website, and the PrAACtical AAC blog. We just love these. These are some of our go-tos. So definitely check them out if you haven't already, or if last month you checked out one of them, check out another one. But then we had a couple other ones that are really good in here. The AAC Language Lab, they have some free areas on their website, and they have this using core words in everyday activities, and then a blog, model. Their blog is always free and they're great, and they have AAC users who share and add to the blog, so it's just a great one to check out. Anyway, and then AssistiveWare, we really like their blog, and they have this great one right here, What is Modeling? So those are all other things that you can check out to learn more about aided language input and other ways to start incorporating it more into your practice.
Well, thank you so much for joining us and watching this video, and we look forward to answering questions and discussing what you took away from this module during our in-depth follow-up discussion that we will have. Thanks so much.